The glorification of weed on this site is extremely irritating. Most people, on Reddit or not, agree that opiates, cocaine, and even alcohol have negative effects on people and society at large. Yet whenever someone points out the downsides of weed, they are immediately swarmed with "it's just a plant bro" or "weed is healthy," one in spite of the fact that marijuana can have long-term effects. https://www.medicalnewstoday.com/article/2639336.php. On your brain, especially if you start young. Weed is arguably no different than other drugs in many respects, yet people act like it's some miracle plant or something, which is an absolutely terrible image of what it can actually be. I'm not here to make a political statement or argue for or against the legalization of weed. That's a separate discussion, Imo. But I think people need to do their research instead of buying into stoner propaganda every day. True, as a science major and weed user, I'm constantly annoyed at the amount of weed is a magical plant that cures everything and has no negative side effects whatsoever in the pot smoking community. Weed makes my anxiety worse. I explain this to people, and they just keep telling me you need to try different kind, with different people, etc., etc. Like I smoked it on and off for a good 6 or so years. I had many kinds, many strengths, smoked with different people. It all made me worse. Yes, weed I'm sure is helpful to some people, but it ain't for everyone, and people need to realize this. Edit. If you're doing to sit here and tell me but weed really is he cure, read my comments. 20+ people bet you to it. No, I'm not a pushback. I believe in medical weed. It just doesn't work for everyone, and you all really need to fucking respect people when they tell you no. Though marijuana has great medical purposes, people hype it up like it's fucking oxygen. It's not that healthy for you. Your lungs can still get fucked when you smoke weed. Edit. Change the can to will. Smoking anything's gonna fuck up your lungs. If that is most of what you are seeing, you should check out r/leaves. It's a really nice subreddit with people who stopped smoking for various reasons and overall are more open and understanding and knowledgeable over the side effects of smoking too much and just getting back to normal life. It's just a proportional reaction to the false propaganda people have been force-fed for decades. Painting weed as a benign substance is foolish though. In order for legalization efforts to be taken seriously, the drug's potentially detrimental effects on the individual and society need to be taken into consideration, as well as the positives it brings. The just a plant mantra pisses me off too. Opium and datura are plants too, dummy. I am not, nor will I ever be, against smoking weed, but to think it's completely harmless is stupid. It helps so many things for so many people, but it did the exact opposite for me. I was in and out of the hospital for the better part of 6 years with a weird vomiting thing I always had going on. I would be constantly vomiting for sometimes a week straight without being able to eat or drink anything. I was diagnosed with cyclic vomiting syndrome, and they would give me an Ativan shot and send me home with hopes I would snap out of an episode. Did I mention I smoked weed every day, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day? Turns out I have a rare vomiting condition caused from smoking weed called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. At first I called bullshit, but the more research I did on it, the symptoms fit me perfectly. I started cutting back on smoking and eventually gave it up and am now 1 year free of being in the hospital for it. I'm not against weed, this is a rare thing. But if you think it's completely harmless, that's ridiculous. If you have a condition that can't be explained and weed is a part of your life, don't just write it off because you don't think it could be that. Just be aware. Other than that, smoke away, I say. I agree with you. It's to the point where the only things people want to talk about is their weed and their average day at work. Joe Rogan does not approve this thread. I don't know, I just find the popularity of it annoying at this point. We get it, weed is alright. I used to do drugs and remember some of the shit people would tell me. All I wanted to do was get high. People really want to defend their drug/alcohol usage. My favorite post about this on Reddit is the AITA thread where someone was having a drink while pregnant. Bad mothers everywhere in support of fetal alcohol syndrome were saying it's fine to have a drink here and there lol. The anti-weed propaganda has existed so long and was such culturally a strong ideology of the past 150 years and current. I'm okay letting stoners have their pro-weed propaganda crusade for now. Society has and likely always will function off the mass indulgence of drugs. It's natural people will protect and justify their vice. I'll stand by because they're the cannon fodder that stands in the way of people coming after my vices. I come from the side of being in AA, and hearing people who tried very hard to break out of the alcohol cycle of cravings and not having control over them, and for the ones also into weed, they seem to have the same hellish cycle. I never got why people think it's different. Every pothead I have ever met had a small life. In AA most people share that their lives got bigger in many ways, a job or friends or vacations or whatever material gains they had previously thought were unattainable, but also your mental state expands, and I think people who are still drinking or doing pot are in a cycle and don't know what they don't know and can't experience what they haven't experienced. The only defense is that I've also seen too many people to count who've been in such a cycle with TV or food. The overuse of food in our country is probably the #1 killer before any sort of drug/drink. People glorify weed 'cause they think it makes them seem cool. Meh. As I tell many people, it's still a drug and like any it will have side effects. For me it has a lot less side effects than the seizure meds I was on and has been more effective, but I won't ever try to convince someone it's healthy, especially smoking. Smoking is perhaps the least healthy method of consumption. It always makes me chuckle when someone tries to convince me otherwise. Though I definitely don't think you should class it with cocaine, opiates, or even alcohol honestly. I've been smoking weed for a long time now. I definitely agree with this. I especially love the weed cures cancer argument. Sure, it may stunt the growth of tumor cells, makes chemo more bearable, etc., but it doesn't outright cure cancer FFS. Marijuana is one of the safer drugs to use, but like all things if you abuse it, it fucks you up. Psychotic illnesses are no joke, one of the most common issues you can have, in relative terms. But they are quite rare, and given how much upside there is, it probably means that weed should be legal/not worried about. As someone who had 1 year of constant panic attacks triggered by weed use, never even having anxiety prior, and continued to have these attacks months after I quit, I say yeah, weed is not harmless. And #X200B. I quit uni, my job, got addicted to benzos, went through hell, all 'cause I wanted to smoke weed and be socially accepted. Now I'm not a stoner and I realize most people don't even care if you smoke. I have no problem with weed, but I hate weed culture is one of the most basic opinions on Reddit. Even alcohol. Alcohol is easily among the worst drugs there are, https://en. Wikipedia, org/wiki/drug_harmfulness. I agree that a lot of people didn't do their research concerning weed, but it's also appalling how grossly trivialized the negative effects of alcohol are. Weed is cool, weed culture ain't. I posted something like this a year ago and got downvoted. Had people just tell me I was wrong and ignorant. Glad to see there are people who do agree. It's the worst scent to combine with people's body odor, especially for people with longer, thicker hairs. I just can't say enough how pungent it is. Also, I get very irritated when people piggyback on weed's medicinal benefits, which it has shown to have some for those on need of it. If you want to use it recreationally, then knock yourself out, but don't drag cancer patients or people with chronic pain etc. into your justification of smoking. You're right, they're annoying as fuck. I drink, don't care for weed myself, but I don't talk about or brag about drinking all the time. It's pathetic, that isn't your whole identity, or shouldn't be. Whilst it is not harmless, it's about the closest we've got and it's fun, so fuck it. Marijuana is majorly less dangerous than most other drugs, much less addictive and has barely any lasting effect on your lungs/brain. Of course, if you use it every day for a long time it's going to affect you, but that's with literally anything. Alcohol is one of the most dangerous ones, yet it's completely acceptable all over the world. As a guy who did a thesis on the long-term effects of drugs, I agree, abusing weed is not a healthy lifestyle at all. The thing is, smoking weed for a long period of time is in no way as damaging as any other drugs. I don't think weed should be illegal, but it along with tobacco should be 21 only, with similar related laws applied to it in recreational use. Personally, I don't care for weed. It makes me anxious and a bit paranoid, and I don't find it useful for relaxation. There's two types of people in the world, people who like cocaine and people who haven't tried it. I agree, weed is useful and can change lives and it shouldn't be completely shunned, but a drug is a drug, it has side effects and shouldn't be treated as a cure-all godsend. I used to be a little outspoken back when I was younger, but weed really is a miracle drug for the two biggest problems in my life, lack of appetite and insomnia. I don't think anyone can argue that weed isn't amazing for these two things. Also, the occasional bout of nausea. I think people just draw onto their own conclusions based on other comparable substances that people/society say is okay. The glorification of weed seems to be very similar to how drinking and smoking cigarettes was glorified even to this day. I personally know no one who thinks it's a miracle plant, most people just smoke it to feel good. Like, drinking and smoking tobacco can give you some form of pleasure/relief in life too. I wonder what kind of people you're running into or hanging out with to make you believe it's being glorified. I like weed, everyone else shouldn't be allowed because it's all mine. Reddit. Ha 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 ha, you dumb anti-vaxxer fucking idiot. Weed heals literally everything. Wow. So many people saying it gives them anxiety and depression. Kinda surprised. Weed is exactly the opposite for me. It provides me a way to unwind, and actually relax. I didn't take my first hit until 42 years old, now I smoke daily. It has made a huge improvement on my life.